Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know a lot of you have joined us for previous webinars. Really excited about this one. Always excited when we can focus around sales, obviously a topic that's near and dear to me. I've known Aaron for a little while, really big fan of what they're building over at IWON Organics, and think that they're just really positioning themselves as a strong brand here in the year to come. Aaron's definitely one of the best sales directors that I know, and they've been a great WeStock brand for I believe like the last 2 years they've been on the platform. So always happy to promote and support the brands that are doing well on the platform as well. The way that it's going to really work is Aaron will kind of talk about the theme, which is going to be really building your sales and your brand within a micro market for the first probably anywhere between 30-35 minutes, and then he'll go into asking questions and we'll kind of open it up for a Q&A. If you do have a pressing question that you want to ask during, feel free to put it in the chat. And then don't feel like you have to rigorously take notes. We do put this up on the YouTube channel after, and I'll send it out to everybody. So with that, Aaron, I'll kick it over to you and I'll let you start.
Oh, I appreciate it. Nice to see everybody out there today. Just going to go over kind of my game plan for building out a micro market. So this can apply to anybody that's just starting out with a completely new brand, or if you've had some success in the market and you're just trying to expand into the next region, whatever it may be. A lot of it hopefully is common sense. Definitely not reinventing the wheel here, just sharing my experiences that I've had that have been successful and things that we have tried and failed, and kind of taken those things out and hopefully just left in the good stuff. 10 steps to building a brand within a micro market. Do the research, number one. Number two, pick the right channel. May sound obvious, but may not be if you're just starting out. Number three, be laser focused. Number four, picking the right SKU mix to start. Number five, maximizing promotions. 6, supporting the right retail initiatives. 7, participating in community events. 8, the ripple effect. 9, expanding your business. And 10, repeat. So the first thing we're going to get into is doing the research ahead of time. So when you're planning any kind of launch into a market, again, whether it's your first launch or if you're just expanding into another region, you want to find out as much as you can about the account and the region in general, what the account rankings are, how many there are, is there an anchor account, etc. Find out how they operate as much as you can before you start, spending the time attacking them, only to find out that maybe it's not the right account. There's several ways to do this, especially in today's climate and all the technology that we have available. You can use colleagues, LinkedIn, other sources to collect the information. You can still, I still do it today, just kind of go online, try to figure out who the buyer is. If you don't have their email address and it's not an account that's going to share that information with you, you can kind of Google what their format is for email addresses and kind of cold call. I've done it before and been successful. So don't ever be afraid of kind of going back to some old school ways of doing business to get that conversation started. Know their cost of business requirements before you start going after the account. Every account is different. Some of them will strong arm you for free fills plus slotting fees, and then they're going to have a different array of things that they want you to support throughout the year. So you really have to know not only what is the cost of business to get into the account, but what is the cost of the business to support the account properly and be successful throughout a year, and hopefully, year 2 and year 3. Know their food quality standards. If you are a natural account and you're going after natural accounts, you'd be surprised what some of their restrictions are on some of these, kind of smaller, really niche natural retailers. So know that you have the right product going in before you start spending time trying to present a brand or a SKU that's not going to fit in for their demographic and their, requirements. And then find the right buyer, obviously. Sometimes there's one grocery manager for the whole chain. Sometimes they have it broken out into subcategories where somebody might just be focusing on beverage, somebody might be doing dry, even through within there, somebody might be doing salty snacks versus somebody else that's on the breakfast desk. So the more you know ahead of time, the sharper you're going to look. And that's kind of what it's all about, is just not trying to go in and ask them a bunch of questions on how their business works. The more you can find out ahead of time, the better off you'll be. And then finding the right review time, right? So everybody has a different approach to that as well. Some have set category reviews when they're reviewing product. Some of them are open. When you're doing your research and you're trying to build out this micro market and you line these things up, you'll have a system in place, hopefully, that will help you be successful from day one through maybe 12 months. So you're not going to be pitching to everybody at the same time. This will kind of help you fill your pipeline so that you can be focused on your efforts.
Hey, Aaron, can I ask a quick question there? What's your viewpoint on brands that maybe they miss it, or it's slightly out of the review period, and starting a conversation and a relationship with the buyer? Then obviously I've seen a few times where retail buyers have slotted products in outside of the review schedule, although it's rare. So what's kind of your viewpoint on that? And or should brands just wait and hold off until those review periods?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's ever anything wrong with selling ahead of time. So as long as you're communicating that and they can understand it. Oftentimes what happens is if you're just kind of blind sending samples out and they're review, let's say you have a chip and they're in the process of reviewing breakfast and chips isn't happening for 2 to 3 months. If you're not communicating those samples are going out ahead of time, chances are they're going to get lost, or they're not going to get paid attention to at all because they're focusing on something different at that time. You can also follow up if on the flip side of that, you're 2-3 weeks behind a review that just happened. Doesn't mean that decisions have been made. So I would definitely, there's exceptions to every rule. So you can always follow up if it's a little bit behind the review period and see if there's still time for you to get in. And or another thing that's kind of always open on the table is if you have innovation. If you have something that is really, truly innovative to the category, I feel that that's always a good time to share information. And again, it kind of goes back to you doing your research. If you know what's going on and you know you're submitting out of review, bring that to the attention in the email or the phone call, or if you're walking in samples or whatever it is, so they're aware.
Awesome. Thanks.
Number 2, pick the right channel. Know your consumer and the retailer's consumer. So this is important. If you're just, again, some of these things go back to launching a brand for the first time. So take this information, kind of tailor it to where you are and what it is you're doing. But a lot of times people, when they're launching something, there's always this urgency of growing, right? But if you're too urgent on growing and you just start throwing your product everywhere, you're going after C-store, you're going after conventional, you're going after natural. One of those or two of those channels probably isn't going to work for your product when you're first launching. So just make sure you know what it is you're going after, where your product is going to have the most trial, the most success, because once you have that, you can start building out secondary and third channels of business. So don't try to jam a square into a circle. If you have a very, very natural product that's a little bit higher price point than a conventional product, chances are you're not going to really fly off the shelves at a 7-Eleven or a mom and pop convenience store down the street. So find out where your consumers currently shop for products or like products if you're just launching something into the market. And then go after that market. So if it's not a natural product, it's very conventional, that's probably where you should start your focus. What does your target retailer consumer look like? Again, kind of goes back to research. Make sure you know who your customer is. Do they live in the area that you're going after? Do they shop at the retailer that you're going to be targeting? Does your retailer's consumer match up with who your customer is? Those are going to be things that are going to be really important to know as you go in and try to sell your product. Air1 in LA, for example, I don't think there's any concern with price points there. So if you have a higher price item, If it has natural benefits and things like that, probably a really good account to go after. If you're selling a $4 bag of chips, I don't think a convenience store is probably going to be your best bet. That leads into, price, and how much does price play a role in your product and where your consumer shopping. So understand that as well, and make sure that you're hitting margins that you need to, that you can support marketing efforts throughout that year, and that you don't put in a place where you're trying to grow and constantly chase volume, right, to make your profit and profitability. It's usually a losing game. So you got to have all those things kind of ready to go in the forefront. And then know that you can, sometimes retailers are going to put whatever SRP they want on a product. So be aware of that. And then just try to kind of guide them as much as possible to have the right price for your product, which is, the last point here. Can your target retailer make their margin requirements and sell it at the right SRP? So if you have a product that you've tested in the market or tested online or whatever, and it's not going to sell for more than like $3.99, it just really slows down, and you have a retailer that wants to sell it at $4.99, you should explore that with the buyer, find out what the reason is that they want to sell at that price. If it's margin requirements, and you can afford to support with a scan or something on the back end to bring that price down, it's probably a better idea than trying to chase with multiple TPRs or things to get them to buy at that regular price. And again, on the flip side, if you have an account like Aaron, where it doesn't really matter, and they know they can sell it for $1 more than everybody else, then more power to them. 3, be laser focused with your launch. 1 good door equals 10 average doors. It kind of goes back to, trying to be everywhere and be everything to everybody. Typically doesn't work. You can work with your distributor to find out who their anchor accounts are for the DC that services the region you're focusing on. That's always a really good way to get in. If you're working with some of the larger distributors like UNFI and KeHE and trying to launch with them, they're going to know who the anchor accounts are. When you first set up, they're also probably going to tell you that if we don't have an anchor with 40 or plus doors, then you're not going to be able to activate. But there's a lot of exceptions to those rules, especially in Southern California. There's accounts that have 5 or 9 doors that can be an anchor for a DC. So again, just kind of goes back to doing your research. Make sure you're working with your distributor team to find out who those accounts are. Start with your first choice. For me, that doesn't mean the biggest account. You can go into a region and there's an account that has 140 doors. But if you're just starting out, that's going to be a really expensive account to go after. Number one, for slotting, and then just to support that many doors and scans and everything really starts adding up. And then also, how are you going to be able to support an account that big? So if that is your first choice to go with the biggest and best, start there. Work your way down the list, not up. So don't start going. It's always, again, exception to the rule. It's always do a little bit of everything as you can. Going back to the first slide, if you've really been thoughtful and done a lot of the homework ahead of time, you should know who's reviewing when. And so in that sense, you go after everybody when you can, when that opportunity is there. But with your efforts and everything, you want to focus on your first choice and let them know, hey, you're my first choice when I'm coming into this market. We're launching this market is brand new. We believe that you are, the right retailer for us to really be successful and get the right consumer base. Let them know that you've done your homework and that things, do line up. There's a lot of small accounts, especially in the natural market, that do like to be first to market. Typically, the higher and the larger you get into those retailers, the less they want to be the first to market on something. They want to see that something has some proof of concept before they start, spending the time and money to set schematics up for 100 plus doors and the manpower to go and set those and all that stuff. So just be smart with your choices of retailers that you're focusing on and how you're focusing that growth. And then pivot when you need to. So if you have a retailer that's like, yeah, maybe they have 20 doors and they're, the best one in the region that's going to really allow you to expand into other areas, but they're just, not quite ready to take you in that much, or they want a little more proof of concept in other retailers. You can definitely work on that proof of concept with other retailers, but it's a great idea and opportunity for you to just request a test in their markets. Maybe you live by like 3 of their doors. Say, hey, I live right here in your backyard. I know there's a consumer for this product here. Can we try a test in 3 stores? Can we try a test in 10 stores if they have 100? Sometimes you'll find that they are willing to do that. And it's a great opportunity for you to go prove out your concept. and oftentimes you can grow with them a lot quicker than having to wait for the next review if they're willing to do that for you. Focus on your top 3, maybe 4 items. This is going to do a couple things for you. It's going to give you an opportunity, which we're going to get to later, which is expansion. And it's also going to give you an opportunity to spend extra time, effort, and money proving a success story. Most retailers aren't going to drop in 10 or 15 SKUs anyway. They're going to want to know what your ranking is. Let's say you have 5 or 6. If number one, if you don't know what your dog is at that point when you're just launching, then you give them your best idea of what the ranking is. Start with, your top 3. And that's going to allow you, even within your top 3, to kind of find out what your lower SKU is. Hopefully you have 3 SKUs that are all amazing and you don't have a dog in that group, but typically at some point you'll find out what that is. Target your active retailers competition. So once you've gotten your 3 items into your retailer, it's time to start, expanding, right? We talk about expansion, not doing it too quick. You also can't afford to not continue to open up doors. So once you get your top retailer or your top 2 retailers that you're focusing on, you want to take that momentum and start going after the people that are looking at them. So, account X is always looking at what account Y is doing. Once you have Y activated, it's a lot easier to go to account X and say, hey, Y is bringing us in and we're doing well. You want to hop on. And typically that's a really good way to make a segue into a secondary account. 4, picking the right product mix. Start with the top sellers and leave room to grow. So start with your top 3 or 4 items, build a success story. You want to focus on just supporting the heck out of these. The spend is going to be a lot less than managing 4 or 5 items or 10 items in there. So spend the extra money and time up front to really prove out a success story with those. What also happens is that you're going to find out what your SKU ranking is outside case study or personal opinions. And you're also going to build a core product mix within your retailer. And once you have a core product mix in there, it's a lot easier to get extensions and SKU extensions and line extensions. Prove your brand has legs and turn your buyer into a brand ambassador. It's another super easy thing to do when you're laser focused on your SKU mix. If you can successfully sell all 3 of your SKUs over the course of 2 to 4 to 6 months, and you can build really big numbers, and you're backing everything that you've told your retail partner that you're going to do, you're going to turn your buyer into a brand ambassador because they know they're making money off of your product. They know you're doing everything that you can be doing to support the brand. And if a product is selling off their shelves at a high rate, that's all they want to see. So then you just start talking about the ring that you're bringing in, and oftentimes that's going to turn them into an advocate for expansion and supporting you in other ways that they can within the retailer. Use that data to open doors at other retailers, obviously, right? It kind of goes back to using that momentum. Once you're on a run and you have momentum behind you, you have to leverage that as often as possible and as quickly as possible, because things turn. You may come up into a season that slows down, That's going to affect your data. You may be on a run, and then people, for whatever reason, a new SKU comes out, something happens, maybe you go out of stock for a minute. Buyers oftentimes will transfer over to whatever's on the shelf if you're not there. 5, maximizing promotions, pricing, planning, and negotiating. This is super important. And I think sometimes, while it's easy and common sense stuff, sometimes people can get lost in the weeds on what to do and how to successfully promote, or spending too much. And I've been victim of, doing deeper discounts than I think we needed to at the time. And you learn from that, and it doesn't always have to be the case. And that's not to say that deep discounts can't be a great driver for unit velocity once in a while, but it's not something that you have to get caught into. And and on the flip side of that, it's something that you can get caught into really easy when you start seeing those, turns on a discount time. But that's going to affect your overall margin, and it's going to affect people's purchasing habits, which you got to be cautious of. So maximizing promotions, pricing, planning, and negotiating. My recommendation is get 12 months on your books. Set up an Excel file. If you don't have that, look at your right times to promote, and the right price to promote, what your competitors are doing, what some key times in your retailers are, and take that all into consideration when you're doing your planning. So promoting at the right price. Again, it may be a BOGO for you. It may be as little as 15% off. Most retailers aren't going to want to see anything lower than 15, and typically they're going to want 20, sometimes 25% discount to get into certain promotional vehicles, or that just might be that they're, what their requirements are. So understand what your retailer's requirements are, and then work accordingly. Again, promoting at the right time for your product. If you have a snack product, for us, we have a healthy snack product, so it's back to health for January. April is a good time. Spring is in the air. There's spring breaks, but yet kids are still in school. Summertime, everybody's snacking in summertime. And then back to school is another great opportunity for us. So like August, September. And then typically we'll support something in the fall time. But if you have, a sparkling wine, I would say probably November, December is going to be an amazing time for you guys. If you have a beverage, you're going to definitely be looking to promote heavily during the summertime. So really understand, when is your consumer shopping for your product, and when can you build more awareness. The idea for me behind promotions is to incentivize customers that are already purchasing your product. And then the more important one, obviously, is to drive trial and awareness. So that's why it's important to make sure that you're doing it at the right time. Get off shelf. Any opportunity you have to promote, you have to look at what is the cost of a TPR versus ad or a display. If you are working within a micro market and you're working with some of these smaller retailers, you can get an ad in 5 or 10 stores for like $500. And this is just, I'm just throwing numbers out there. But if you look at that cost of $100 for 5 displays, or, $100 each for 5 displays, versus not spending that money and just having a TPR on the shelf, I think it's a no-brainer to spend that money and get off shelf. Those are the ways that you're going to build awareness. It's the ways you're going to grab eyes. And it's a great way to build a story, right? So you can use all of these things. You go and collect the pictures from the displays. You put them up on social media. You tag the retail partner. Now you're showing that you're trying to drive business to the retail partner by doing these things. It shows that, it's kind of that, maybe not an illusion, but it gives the awareness that you are a brand that is doing something, right? So oftentimes, especially on like LinkedIn, you throw a picture of a display up in one store and people can think you're ruling the world, which is great. You want you want to show them that you're bigger than you are sometimes, right? So that you can get to that next step. It's kind of about, dressing for the job you want, not the job you have. So
Yeah, and I do want to
you,
add there, Aaron, like if
yeah,
anybody knows Mark on LinkedIn, like he's like constantly promoting stuff, the founder of IWON, and he does a great job. So for like any founders, it's definitely like never too early to like start building your personal brand, and then you can start really helping and promoting these promotions you have in store. And I think Mark does an awesome job of that. Definitely like follow him on LinkedIn if you're not now, because he does a really good job supporting these stores through social media.
that's a great point. Yeah. So, I mean, we do as a company, we have kind of a few different things we do. We love sharing the displays that are out there, right? That's obviously a great thing. And just the pride you get as either a founder or head of sales when you can go and see these things, they're great. They're great just for that internal push. But, as Cameron said, they're great to share with people as well. If you have a digital team or anything like that, we always recommend doing coming soon posts so that and we do them on LinkedIn, we do them on, IG stories as well. And then we do a now available, and then we'll do something, shortly after we launch, so that it's kind of like a 3-touch approach to making sure that we're supporting the retailer and that our customers know that something's now available. Supporting the right initiatives. So outside of your promotions, your TPRs, your ads, there's other areas that your retailer is probably going to request that you spend money. And if they're not requesting, they're areas that are probably good for building brand awareness. So remember, this is all about micro market. So you gotta start thinking. I'm in Southern California, for example. So I got Jimbo's in San Diego. I got Mother's in Orange County. I got Air One in LA, and then obviously we have banners that cross all of those counties. But even in micro markets, if you take Southern California, for example, as a micro market, you even have like subs, right? So it's about building this awareness that touches everybody. So that way, if they're traveling or working in LA, but they live in Orange County, they can get that product whether they're on break at work or or after work at home. So leverage your ad spend. There's always negotiations that can be had. And this kind of goes back to your slotting costs and everything. Like, don't be afraid to negotiate. You obviously don't want to negotiate so hard that they get turned off and then you don't get anything. But don't be afraid to ask. So leverage your ad spend. If you're spending $1,000 for 10 doors to have an ad, request that they squash their margin a little bit. Sometimes that can happen. Or if it's an ad with no display guaranteed, request that you get 40% of the stores to commit to an off-shelf display during the ad. Something that's going to get you a little bit extra and build awareness. Incentivize employees when you can. So there's lots of different ways to do this. You can walk in with samples. You can deliver samples to the team. They have some retailers will have sales contests that the store managers can get involved in that are coincided with an ad or a display. You can provide free coupons to the store employees that not only give them an opportunity to try the product, it shows that you're interested, you're showing some interest in them. And it also, pulls turns off of their shelf. So it's a free coupons are a great tool to use and just show show that interest and care. If you have the funding for shirts, hats, those are a great tool for showing appreciation to the store. And it also gets you branding as they're walking around the store all day in your branded clothes. So those are always good spends, in my opinion. Incentivize the customers when you can. So there's shopper loyalty programs, digital coupons, shopper events. Sometimes stores will have like random flash weekend sales or whatever. Those can be good. Just again, you gotta want to look at your spend and what you get in return. But typically, if they have shopper events or anything like that, sometimes it's just you can go and set up a booth outside and hand out free samples. Lots of different alternative events that retailers will do. You can give branded shopping bags when you're doing a demo or something like that. Buy some product, get a free bag. So just think about different ways, and these are just a few examples. You can get super creative with these things, but they're great ways to just kind of build brand awareness. And then outside of the retailer, support the right retail or supporting the right retail events. So demos, as those may start coming back. I mean, with COVID, it seems like they've kind of come to a screeching halt, and I haven't really seen a lot of interaction or engagement with demos at this point. But I'm sure at some point the tide will turn on that. BOGO events, employee appreciation events, flash sales, etc. Just kind of those are all things that you have to gauge on a case by case basis, but they're definitely things that you should be thinking about as you spend and look at your budget. More spend and more participation in community events, when and where to sample. So these are things outside the retailer, but still support either the micro market that you're in, or they support indirectly the retailer, which ultimately hopefully drives more turns and sales for you. So it does a two-part thing. It shows the retailer that you're trying to grow awareness for your product outside of, just doing the TPRs and stuff. And it hopefully is, more importantly, is creating better turns for you. So find events that allow you to participate for small fees or free goods. Community events can get very expensive, so you got to watch for those pitfalls and really just try to, again, it comes back to negotiating and starting out small and focused and seeing what you can really do with some select kind of key events. Make sure they're relevant events to your brand or lifestyle. If you're selling Snickers bars, probably not going to go after yoga events. If you're selling kombucha, that might be a better opportunity for you. So understand what the event is, the size of the event. Does your consumer, go to these events? Is that kind of who your target consumer is? If it is, then I think it might be worth you taking the extra steps and exploring what that looks like to support. Leverage the event on social media. This kind of goes, leveraging on social media goes to everything you're doing. So again, if you have a display, leverage it. If you're going to be just even on a TPR and you're not off display, you can still leverage it. Hey, people, we're going to be at Jimbo's this month, 2 for $6. Go, stock up. So if you're doing an event, leverage it on social media, blast it out before, try to drive some of your own consumers, brand loyal consumers there. And then just support the event. It just helps. It's kind of that 3-prong approach. So, blast it out before you go, maybe try to do some stuff while you're actually there at the event. And then you can do a recap on social media after the event. Get some pictures of people engaging with your product in their hand. Those are great things that you can start putting into your sales decks and using for future opportunities. Use the event to get feedback on your product. So this is another great way to just kind of do case studies on your brand. People love free product, and they also love to share their opinions. So you're probably going to get a mixed bag of this is disgusting to it's the best thing I've ever had. So you got to take each review with a grain of salt, but if you start seeing themes and trends that are moving through your reviews from people, they can be very eye-opening to make sure that if you have a theme that's kind of something that can be fixed, it's something that you should probably approach. If you see a theme that is very positive, those are things that you should start probably sharing with your buyers. Let them know these are things, these are comments that we're getting overwhelming. So we know that we, have a good product or whatever it is. Lead people to your retail partners. So this is a great way to, you can have a banner supporting all the retail and put the logos of the retail partners on there so that they know where to go. Obviously, there will be people that will ask you where to go, where your product is currently carried. So it's just a great opportunity to build awareness on where your product is sold. And again, bring some coupons and let them go buy the product at your retail partners' locations. So another great opportunity. If they've tried it and you got a free coupon or a deep discount coupon and they like it, give them a couple coupons and let them go to town. Maybe they'll share a coupon with a friend or something like that. People like to share information on things they like. So it's a really great way to get that organic growth happening. The ripple effect. So this is where you take all the things that we've talked about, all the successes that you've had over maybe the course of 2, 3 months, 6 months, and you start really doubling down on your momentum. So early on, you're not going to have data. If you do have data, it's not going to be robust enough or really compelling enough to want to tip the scales in your favor for any retailers. In my experience, that typically doesn't come until you have a good 2 years of solid data out there that you can show. So when you're selling out of the gate, you're selling on a story. So your why, why are you in this business? Why did you create the product that you created? Why are you working for the brand that you're working for? Those are things that you're really going to want to push as heavy importance when you're talking to your retail partners. Your brand story and why you created the brand, they're your best data points, right? And then you're going to start building in some of your early successes. So use the data to your advantage when you have less than 1 year of sales, meaning if you opened a 5-store chain and you're selling 10 units a week, if that's a good number for your category, then you got to just shout that from the rooftops. Let them know how well you're doing for an early brand, because that's kind of what you have to do. You say, look, we're only in market 2 months and we're already doing what the top brands in our category are doing. And we know that if we can continue this, that, not only will we continue to be at those numbers, but we can grow from there. So you got to showcase the metrics that will show your buyer what the brand can do. Again, it's early on, so you get to manipulate the data in your favor and show just the good stuff. And then again, use momentum to build a sense of urgency for a retailer to bring in your product. This is more specific to probably the people that are doing outside the review categories or open reviews, and let them know, timing's of the essence to get your product on their shelves. 9, expand your current assortment. So now we're talking about, you're doing 2 things hopefully in tandem. You're looking at expanding your retail base, right? Your door count with new retailers. Now you're at a place where hopefully you've had some success with your current retailers, and it's time to start expanding your business in there. So you've launched with 3 or 4 of your top SKUs. You've proven that out. Not only have you hopefully proven that your customer base is the same as their customer base, and that you have hopefully you're starting to build in a brand loyal customer base. You do your review and you just basically kind of it's an opportunity to grade yourself and show them what you've done for them as a partner over the last 6 months or a year. And you got to bring all this stuff to their attention. You got to show them what you've spent. You got to show them the types of things that you've done outside of the normal TPRs and ads. You got to show them what your brand obviously is doing. You got to show them, tell them how much, positive feedback you get from the employees at the stores when you come in and talk to them. These are all things that you can do. And if you can show them in a way where they can't deny what you've done as far as partnership and everything, you're more than likely going to get the expansion on the SKUs and lines. Because the most important thing for them is, obviously, is the product selling off the shelf. But the second thing that's most important is going to be, do they like working with you, and do you do what you commit to do? And if those things are correct and true to them, then they should have a really hard time not giving you the expansion. and that's it. And once you've done that, you basically know what you can do, and you can repeat that in multiple markets across the country. So it's super easy and encouraging. Like, that's why I love micro markets and growing a micro market, because it keeps you focused. It gives you a lot of hopeful success that you can use to encourage yourself to go and repeat this in a different market, and know that it's a successful game plan, so that you don't have to go and repeat, kind of reinvent the wheel when you're going from launching in Southern California, and maybe your next step is NorCal, or it's, the New York metro market. The only thing that's going to change in your game plan is the first slide, which is doing the homework to find out who are the right retailers to be in, and what is the cost of supporting them. Once you have those things figured out, you can go and do this over and over again.
Aaron, thanks so much for sharing that and going over that. I did have one quick question to kind of kick us off, just because I hear it from brands all the time. Like, how do you approach distribution kind of in a new micro market? Are you viewing it through mostly like local DSDs? Are you leveraging a bigger distributor that you're already in with, like a Unifier or KeHE? Or are you using kind of like those third-party distributor applications like a Pod Foods or a Mabel or something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. My approach on distribution has always been based on what the retailer wants. So it goes back to doing that kind of early homework. Find out, most retailers are going to have one or two distributors that they work with, right? Typically, for me, my experience has been in the natural foods for most of my career. So it's always been Unifier, KeHE as like a leading distributor. So I'll find out who their primary is, or find out who a majority of the primary is, and go with them. And that's going to change from market to market. So for SoCal, for example, it's really, probably a 50-50 split at this point, Unify and KeHE. As where Northeast, New York metro market is really driven more by DSD.
Yeah. And I think way too many brands make the mistake of thinking the distribution is the win, and then they'll figure out points of distribution after that, or get their anchor after that. And definitely focus on the retailer first. I can agree with Aaron more there, and then worry about distribution. The retailer will lead you, usually after that conversation. Happy to unmute anybody if anybody has any questions or wants to throw them into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask any questions from Aaron. I know obviously sales is a question obviously everyone has on their minds, so feel free to leave any questions in the chat or unmute yourself. We'll stick around for a couple of minutes, and we'll see if anybody has any questions. Aaron, one more while we're waiting for people to kind of populate questions. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see brands make kind of right out of the gate when they enter a new market?
I think one of the biggest mistakes brands make is overspending on everything. So you can't blow your whole funding for a year in the first 4 to 6 months, because you have nothing left to support with on the back end. And oftentimes what happens is they get so aggressive on trying to, be everywhere and create this huge brand awareness, but they can't support it long term. So what happens is, yeah, it looks great for, a minute. You see the product everywhere. And then 6 months from now, you don't see it anywhere. So you have to be just really cautious about how much you're spending and when and where.
And then what promotions do you usually see have the highest ROI? I know a lot of companies obviously aren't super well funded, or they might be bootstrapping kind of, especially in their first market or two. What promotions or programs do you think usually have the biggest ROI from a brand standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as like supporting scan or discount wise, if you're right in that 20% range, that's really good. People, for a product like ours, for example, we have a $4.99 product. If we get it down to $3.99, you're saving $1. So in the consumer's mind, that's it's a nice round number. It's definitely savings, and it's enough for people to want to try that, to give trial on it. A lot of it is so like subconscious that it's a lot. It depends on your retailer, right? So if you see a yellow tag and it's only 50 cents, a lot of people aren't really paying attention to what that regular everyday price is. They see the yellow tag, they see it's on sale. If that sale price is in the price range that they're willing to pay, they'll pick it up. So it's not so much, what is the discount from the original price? But that changes from retailer to retailer. I would say the biggest thing for promotions and driving trial and awareness is getting off shelf. So
Awesome.
in my opinion, I think it's more important to spend the extra money getting off shelf and doing a less effective, not as deep a promotional price, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. Callie does have a question, so I'll let her ask the question now.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. This has been really, really helpful. I had two questions actually. First one, so we do cleaning products and we do personal care. Our focus is zero waste, and we're in Rainbow Grocery right now in San Francisco, and the dish soap product is doing really well. But I'm kind of like at the point as one of the company owners where I can't do everything myself. And I've kind of failed at hiring good sales help. Do you have any suggestions on hiring help for, the product that we make that we're super passionate about? And it's just really, I've had definitely some bad experiences with hiring. So any tips would be helpful.
Yeah, that's a great point. That can be one of the areas where companies end up spending unnecessary money, and it can be a challenge to manage them, hire them, and then hope that you have somebody that's pulling their weight. What we've done that's been successful for us is we've hired third-party merchandising and sales companies like Dirty Hands or Base Makers or something along those lines that can get into stores, make sure your product's on shelf, hopefully maybe get you to a better place on shelf, open up some new independent doors. Typically the cost is a lot less than bringing on a full-time employee. And we've kind of done that approach where we did that for a bit, and now we're working with a broker that we can hire regionally so that we don't have to have a national presence and spend too much on a broker. We can do it really focused. So there's a few different ways that you can accomplish that without having to hire a full-time employee.
Interesting. And just curious, do you prefer it that way just overall because of budget, or you like the service that they're like? I guess for my products, I feel like there's just a ton, anybody's products, I feel like there's like a ton to know about it. So then if I gave it to somebody that I couldn't nurture about all the aspects of the product, I feel like it would possibly be like kind of superficial,
Yeah, so I agree with you in theory that, I don't believe that there's ever going to be a better sales rep than a company employee, but you have to look at the overall picture. If you can't afford it, then you kind of have to know that somebody like a broker or a third-party sales and merchandising company is managing several different brands. And you just have to temper your expectations to a certain extent. And that doesn't mean that you give leniency to the point where they don't have to perform, but just know that they're probably not going to know as much as you are. I would try to focus on really like what are the 3 or 4 really super important takeaway points for them to know, and hammer those in. You can still spend, so when you have a third party company working for you, you can still do sales calls, you can still do monthly meetings, you can still meet them in the field and do ride-alongs with them that will offer that training and everything. So all the opportunities to train them as well as you would as a cell phone employee would, you can do that. You're just not going to, to temper expectations, you're not going to get the same level of focus as you would with a full-time employee.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And then I'll be really fast because I'm sure other people have questions. My other question was regarding pricing. We with particularly the dish soap product, it's something we invented several years ago. So at the very beginning, our price per unit was pretty high and we had a larger size. And then we shrank the size 3 different times and then we shrank the price a lot. And right now we're in around 1,500 stores, mostly not grocery stores in US and Canada. And each time I reduce the price, I, let people know on the product page, sometimes with like an insert in their wholesale order. And then I started finding out about 2 years later, some stores were still pricing the new smaller product at the new much lower price per ounce as like a 3-year-old price for a bigger bar. So any suggestions on like communicating to retailers like, hey, we lowered the price and you should be selling this cheaper?
It's it's as simple as that. Yeah, you should reach out and be like, you're missing opportunity. You're selling, hopefully you have somewhere where you can take a case study where the new price and new size is doing well for you at a retailer, and just kind of go and feed that back to them. Say, hey, look, you're selling at the wrong price. You really should be at this price. You'll still be hitting your margin requirements. And retailer X did this. We're seeing that our turn rate is going up by 20%, which is going to make up for any, lower price that they're hitting on shelf.
Okay. And then if they decide to just keep the price higher, that's on them.
It kind of is. Yeah. So, I mean, and if it's working, what you can't really fault them for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It may be.
Yeah, I guess.
And if it's
mainly, yeah, I would say mainly the retailers that I've had issues with are ones who are like online type ones, specialty online retailers. And like I found one several months ago, and they were selling the product for, they were selling it for over double retail. But then they offer free shipping, but I'm like, still, it's so expensive. Like people could go on Amazon even and see that it's almost twice the Amazon price. And it just makes us look bad. It like, I guess makes us, there's already a perception for like the zero waste and vegan industry that things might be expensive, and we work really hard to make it not expensive. So I guess that's the issue where I'm like, you're hurting the whole image of everyone involved in this,
Yeah. That's a hard one. I don't manage the e-com business 100%, but I mean, in my opinion, I would say you probably, with that, they're probably actually driving more business to Amazon. So if you're profitable there, it may be in your benefit.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
If anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to take one more. I do know we're kind of up against it with the 2:00 hour coming. Aaron, do you want to say thank you so much for hopping on here and going over a super important topic? Anybody that's going to be at Expo West, myself and Aaron will be there walking the show. So definitely feel free to hit us up. Would love to meet some new brands and chat with you all. And with that, enjoy the rest of your week. And thanks so much. Thanks a lot, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity, Cameron. Good luck to everybody out there. Hopefully you had some nuggets in there you can use. And
if anyone hasn't tried IWON, it is like the best, like healthy snack product. So I will give some kudos out to them. Definitely go out and try the product. It's spectacular.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later, Aaron. Bye.
Take care, Cameron. Bye.